Hello. I hope everyone is well today. Eh. Stupid Bonbon forgot to remove the or move the microphone. Oh my god. Well, I'm actually quite exhausted, to be honest. I have been around too many people, in my opinion. And please tell me if the music is too loud or anything. Or if I'm not loud enough. Because I'm trying something new. Well, it's only you, Moik. I couldn't handle round 5, and unfortunately you were around 6. So sad. So yeah. I missed you all as well. I had to take care of my mental health last time. Unfortunately. So yeah. Yeah, I hope so too. But let's see how long the chapter is today. That was a very, very short chapter. 43. That's less than 10 pages. Damn. Okay, so we are gonna take 2 chapters today, from what I can see. Hey! Stop that. That's not nice. Thank you. It's unfortunate that I have to do it, but it's stupid not to do it. I would much rather do a lot of other things. Yeah, unfortunately. Like taxes you have to pay. Ugh. Okay, 2 seconds before I forget. Feature suggested. Let's see here. Oh, you too, Mike. Thank you for coming in. Okay. It is because I am trying a new streaming studio, because it is a lot easier to multi-stream on that. But the only thing is I can't move the chat to another place, which annoys the fuck out of me. Because then I can't just look a little bit to my right and see chat. I have to look all the way over to the right side of my screen to be able to see it. And that's fucking annoying. Thank you, Earthling. Oh. Primary. Huh. Oh, nice. Oh. I will just see what the next chapter is called. Run under the hill. Interesting. Oh, fair. I'm just gonna go with that one then. So yes. As I said, today we're gonna do 2 chapters. And there might be some things which doesn't work, like some commands or something. But I'm gonna look at that at some other time, at some other point, because it's, as I said, it's a new streaming software I'm trying. So it's kind of hard to get everything working. I just set it up like within the last 2 hours. So yeah, and remember everyone, this one should work. Can you guys click on them, by the way? Awesome. Because I can't. And then we have oh my god. I think it's this one. Yes, it's that one. Here. I also stream on YouTube, so if you want to support me over there, just put down a subscribe. And I would very much appreciate that. We also have a Discord, but if you're not there, it's all good. So yes. But I hope you all have had a lovely week. Oh, because mine has been good. A little bit taxing on the energy levels, but yeah, more or less good. So that's awesome. I had food. Thank you very much. Still feeling a little hungry, but that's okay. Oh, nice. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mavis. But yeah. Piss off with that. Yeah. Fill up one. Exactly how it should be. Oh. But I appreciate it very much. Yeah, it's because my sinuses do not want to be alive with me. So I have enlarged like slime thingies in my sinuses, which makes it harder for me to actually breathe through my nose. So yeah, I haven't had much issues with pollen this year due to me being in New Zealand for a long time. And when I came home, the pollen was more or less zero, or at least very low. So yeah. But I also, like, every day I take medicine to not be annoyed by it. No, you're not gonna touch them. Last time I had something with them, I got surgery for them to be reduced. And that helped a lot. So now I have a lot of air coming in through like the left side, but not as much at the right side. And as long as it's not annoying me, then I'm not gonna do anything about it. So yeah. But yeah, at the moment it doesn't annoy me at all. Which is actually quite nice. But we are gonna read some things today. So I'm just gonna start, and then you can all hopefully enjoy it. That looks like something with curry, Earthling. And that is a big no-go for me. Why is it so yellow then? And for everyone who can't see, Earthling sent a picture of some food to me. Huh, interesting. Fair. Okay, let's go. Chapter 3, A Short Rest. They did not sing or tell stories that day, even though the weather improved. Nor the next day, nor the day after. They had begun to feel that danger was not far away on either side. They camped under the stars, and their horses had more to eat than they had, for there was plenty of grass, but there was not much in their bags, even with what they had got from the trolls. One morning they forded a river at a wide shallow place, full of the noise of stones and foam. The far bank was steep and slippery. When they got to the top of it, leading their ponies, they saw that the great mountains had marched down very near to them. Already they seemed only a day's easy journey from the feet of the nearest. Dark and drear it looked, though there were patches of sunlight on its brown sides, and behind its shoulders the tips of snow peaks gleamed. Oh, annoying. Is that the mountain? Asked Bilbo in a solemn voice, looking at it with round eyes. He had never seen a thing that looked so big before. Of course not, said Balin. That is only the beginning of the Misty Mountains, and we have got to get through, or over, or under somehow, before we can come into Wilderland beyond. And it is a great deal of way even from the other side of them to the lonely mountain in the east where Smaug lies on our treasure. Oh, said Bilbo, and just at that moment he felt more tired than he ever remembered feeling before. He was thinking once again of his comfortable chair before the fire in his favorite sitting room in his hobbit hole, and of the kettle singing, not for the last time. Now Gandalf led the way. We must not miss the road, or we shall be done for, he said. We need food, for one thing, and rest is in reasonable safety. Also, it is very necessary to tackle the Misty Mountains by a proper path, or else you will get lost in them and have to come back and start at the beginning, if you ever get back at all. They asked him where he was making for, and he answered, You are come to the very edge of the wild, as some of you may know. Hidden somewhere ahead of us is the fair valley of Rivendell, where Elrond lives in the last homely house. I sent a message by my friend, and we are expected. That sounded nice and comforting, but they had not got there yet, and it was not so easy as it sounds to find the last homely house west of the mountains. There seemed to be no trees and no valleys, and no hills to break the ground in front of them, only one vast slope, going slowly up and up to meet the feet of the nearest mountain. A wide land the color of heather and crumbling rock, with white patches and slashes of grass green and moss green showing where water might be. Ew. Morning passed, afternoon came, but in all the silent waste there was no sign of any dwelling. They were growing anxious, for they saw now that the house might be hidden almost anywhere between them and the mountains. They came on unexpected valleys, narrow with steep sides, that opened suddenly at their feet, and they looked down surprised to see trees below them and running water at the bottom. There were gullies that they could almost leap over, but very deep with waterfalls in them. There were dark ravines that one could neither jump over nor climb over. Climb into. There were bogs, some of them green, pleasant places to look at, with flowers growing bright and tall, but a pony that walked there with a pack on its back would never have come out again. It was indeed a much wider land from the ford to the mountains than ever you would have guessed. Bilbo was astonished. The only path was marked with white stones, some of which were small and others were half covered with moss or heather. Altogether, it was a very slow business following the track, even guided by Gandalf, who seemed to know his way about pretty well. His head and beard wagged this way and that as he looked for the stones, and they followed his lead, but they seemed no nearer to the end of the search when the day began to fail. Tea time had long gone by, and it seemed supper time would soon do the same. There were moths fluttering about, and the light became very dim, for the moon had not risen. Bilbo's pony began to stumble over roots and stones. They came to the edge of a steep fall in the ground so suddenly that Gandalf's horse nearly slipped down the slope. "Here it is at last," he called, and the others gathered round him and looked over the edge. They saw a valley far below. They could hear the voice of hurrying water in a rocky bed at the bottom, with scent of trees was in the air, and there was a light on the valley side across the water. Bilbo never forgot the way they slithered and slipped in the dusk down the steep zigzag path into the secret valley of Rivendell. The air grew warmer as they got lower, and the smell of the pine trees made him drowsy, so that every now and again he nodded and nearly fell off, or bumped his nose on the pony's neck. The spirits rose as they went down and down. The trees changed to beech and oak, and there was a comfortable feeling in the twilight. The last green had almost faded out of the grass when they came at length to an open glade not far above the banks of the stream. It smells like elves," thought Bilbo, and he looked up at the stars. They were burning bright and blue. Just then there came a burst of song like laughter in the tree. Oh, what are you doing? And where are you going? Your ponies need shoeing, the river is flowing. Oh, tra-la-la-la-lolly, here down in the valley. Oh, what are you seeking, and where are you making? The faggots are reeking, the bannocks are baking. Oh, trilly-lolly, the valley is jolly, ha ha. Oh, where are you going, with beers all a-wagging? No knowing, no knowing, what brings Mr. Backins and Balin and Dwalin down into the valley in June, ha ha. Oh, will you be staying, or will you be flying? Your ponies are straying, the daylight is dying. To fly would be folly, to stay would be jolly, and listen and hark till the end of the dark to our tune. Ha ha. That was annoying. Oh, that's fucking annoying. Oh. So they laughed and sang in the trees, and pretty fair nonsense, I dare say you think it. Not that they would care, they would only laugh all the more if you told them so. They were elves, of course. Soon Bilbo caught glimpses of them as the darkness deepened. He loved elves, though he seldom met them, but he was a little frightened of them too. Dwarfs don't get on well with them. Even decent enough dwarfs like Thorin and his friends think them foolish, which is a very foolish thing to think, or get annoyed with them. For some elves tease them and laugh at them, and most of all at the beards. Well, well, said a voice, just look, Bilbo the Hobbit on a pony, my dear. Isn't it delicious? Most astonishing, wonderful. Then off they went into another song as ridiculous as the one I have written down in full. At last one, a tall young fellow, tall young fellow came out from the trees and bowed to Gandalf and to Thorin. Welcome to the valley, he said. Thank you, said Thorin, with a bit gruffly. But Gandalf was already off his horse and among the elves, talking merely with them. You are a little out of your way, said the elf. That is, if you are making for the only path across the water and to the house beyond. We will set you right, but you had best get on foot until you are over the bridge. Are you going to stay a bit and sing with us, or will you go straight on? Supper is preparing over there, he said. I can smell the wood fires for cooking. Well, they laugh at all beards, so. Tired as he was, Bilbo would have liked to stay a while. Elvish singing is not a thing to miss in June under the stars, not if you care for such things. Also, he would have liked to have a few private words with these people that seemed to know his names and all about him, although he had never seen them before. He thought their opinion of his adventure might be interesting. Elves know a lot and are wondrous folk for news, and know what is going on among the other peoples of the land, as quick as water flows, or quicker. But the dwarfs were all for supper as soon as possible just then, and would not stay. On they all went, leading their ponies till they were brought to a good path, and so at last to the very brink of the river. It was flowing fast and noisily, as mountain streams do of a summer evening. When sun has been all day on the snow far up above, there was only a narrow bridge of stone without a parapet, as narrow as a pony could well walk on it, and over that they had to go, slow and careful, one by one, each leading his pony by the bridle. The elves had brought bright lanterns to the shore, and they sang a merry song about the patty as the party went across. Don't dip your beard in the foam, father, they cried to Thorin, who was bent almost onto his hands and knees. It is long enough without watering it. Mind Bilbo doesn't eat all the cakes, they called. He is too fat to get through keyholes yet. Hush, hush, good people, and good night, said Gandalf, who came last. Valleys have ears, and some elves have over merry tongues. Good night. And so at last they all came to the last homely house and found its doors flung wide. Oh, I'm sorry, Earthling. Now it is a strange thing, but things that are good to have and days that are good to spend are soon told about, and not much to listen to, while things that are uncomfortable, palpitating, and even gruesome may make a good tale and take a deal of telling anyway. They stayed long in that good house, 14 days at least, and they found it hard to leave. Bilbo would gladly have stopped there forever and ever, even supposing a wish would have taken him right back to his hobbit hole without trouble. Yet there is little to tell about their stay. The master of the house was an elf friend. One of those people whose father came into the strange stories before the beginning of history. The wars of the evil goblins and the elves and the first men in the north. In those days of our tale, there were still some people who had both elves and heroes of the north for ancestors, and Elrond, the master of the house, was their chief. He was a noble and as fair in face as an elf lord, as strong as a warrior, as wise as a wizard, as venerable as a king of dwarves, and as kind as summer. He comes into many tales, but his part in the story of Bilbo's great adventure is only a small one, though important, as you will see if we ever get to the end of it. His house was perfect, whether you liked food or sleep or work or storytelling or singing or just sitting and thinking best, or a pleasant mixture of all of them. Evil things did not come into that valley. I wish I had time to tell you even a few of the tales or one or two of the songs that they had heard in that house. All of them, their ponies as well, grew refreshed and strong in a few days there. Their clothes were mended, as well as their bruises, their tempers and their hopes. Their bags were filled with food and provisions, light to carry but strong to bring them over the mountain passes. Their plans were improved with the best advice, so the time came to Midsummer Eve, and they were to go on again with the early sun on midsummer morning. Elrond knew all about runes of every kind. That day he looked at the swords they had brought from the troll's lair, and he said, "These are not troll make, they are old swords, very old swords of the high elves of the west, my kin. They were made in Gondolin for the goblin wars. They must have come from a dragon's horde or a goblin plunder, for dragons and goblins destroyed that city many ages ago. This Thorin, the rune's name Orcrist, the goblin cleaver in the ancient tongue of Gondolin. It was a famous blade. This Gandalf was Glamdring, foe hammer that the king of Gondolin once wore. Keep them well. Whence did the trolls get them, I wonder, said Thorin, looking at his sword with new interest. I could not say, said Elrond, but one may guess that your trolls have plundered other plunderers, or come on the remains of old robberies in some hole in the mountains. I have heard that there are still forgotten treasures of old to be found in the deserted caverns of the mines of Moria, since the dwarf and goblin war. Thorin pondered these words. I will keep the sword in honor, he said. May it soon cleave goblins once again. I wish that it is likely to be granted soon enough in the mountains, said Elrond. But show me now your map. He took it and gazed long at it, and he shook his head. For if he did not altogether approve of dwarfs and their love of gold, he hated dragons and their cruel wickedness, and he grieved to remember the ruin of the town of Dale and its merry bells and the burned banks of the bright river running. The moon was shining in a broad silver crescent. He held up the map, and with white light shone through it. What is this? He said. There are moon letters here, beside the plain runes which say 5 feet high, the door and 3 may walk abreast. What are moon letters? Asked the hobbit full of excitement. He loved maps, as I have told you before, and he also liked runes and letters and cunning handwriting. Though when he wrote himself, it was a bit thin and spidery. Moon letters are rune letters, but you cannot see them, said Elrond. Not when you look straight at them. They can only be seen when the moon shines behind them. And what is more, with the more cunning sword, it must be a moon of the same shape and season as the day when they were written. The dwarfs invented them and wrote them with silver pens, as your friends could tell you. These must have been written on a midsummer's eve in a crescent moon a long while ago. Smaug, compare in what context, Earthling? In the hated dragons thing? Or like Uh, no, they are talking about dwarves, about dragons in general, um, because the elven city of Gondolin, which is like way prior to this, was burned down by dragons. So yeah. But Elrond know that that Smaug is in the Lonely Mountain. So Smaug is no exception to Elrond's hate for dragons. What do they say? Asked Gandalf and Thorin together, a bit vexed perhaps that even Elrond should have found this out first, though really there had not been a chance before, and there would not have been another until goodness knows when. Stand by the grey stone when the thrush knocks, read Elrond, and the setting sun with the last light of Durin's day will shine upon the keyhole. Durin, Durin, said Thorin. He was the father of the fathers of the eldest race of dwarfs, the Longbeards, and my first ancestor. I'm his heir. Then what is Durin's day? Asked Elrond. Is the first day of the dwarf's new year, said Thorin. Is, as all should know, the first day of the last moon of autumn, on the threshold of winter. We still call it Durin's Day when the last moon of autumn and the sun are in the sky together. But this will not help us much, I fear, for it passes our skill in these days to guess when such a time will come again. That remains to be seen, said Gandalf. Is there any more writing? None to be seen by this moon, said Elrond, and he gave the map back to Thorin, and then they went down to the water to see the elves dance and sing upon the midsummer eve. The next morning was a midsummer's morning, as fair and fresh as could be dreamed, blue sky, and never a cloud, and the sun dancing on the water. Now they rode away amid songs of farewell and good speed, with their hearts ready for more adventure, and with the knowledge of the road they must follow over the misty mountains to the land beyond. Okay. So that was the first chapter. And the next chapter went to where? Page 64. Okay. So I do not think I have a reminder for when ads will arrive. Is it possible for you to tell me when it pops up? Thank you. Oh, nice. Huh. I cannot remember here. It's stream info. Done. It should have changed the stream info. I cannot remember if it's the same on YouTube. Here. There we go. There and back again. Holy fluff, that was slow. Huh. I'll probably find out about that later. Nah. Boom, boom, boro, boom, boom, boom. Oh. Okay. Thank you. Chapter 4, Over Hill and Under Hill. There were many paths that led up into those mountains, and many passes over them. But most of the paths were cheats and deceptions and led nowhere, or to bad ends, and most of the passes were infested by evil things and dreadful dangers. The dwarves and the Hobbit, held by the wise advice of Elrond and the knowledge and memory of Gandalf, took the right road to the right path. Long days after they had climbed out of the valley, left the last homely house miles behind, they were still going up and up and up. It was a hard path and a dangerous path, a crooked way and a lonely and long. Now they could look back over the lands they had left, laid out behind them far below. Far, far away in the west, where things were blue and faint, Bilbo knew there lay his own country of safe and comfortable things, and his little hobbit hole. He shivered. It was getting bitter cold up here, and the wind came shrill among the rocks. Boulders, too, at times came galloping down the mountainsides, let loose by midday sun upon the snow, and passed among them, which was lucky, or over their heads, which was alarming. The nights were comfortless and chill, and they did not dare to sing or talk too loud, for the echoes were uncanny, and the silence seemed to dislike being broken, except by the noise of water, and the wail of wind, and the crack of stone. Okay, so we're gonna take a break here because I cannot read to the next passage with the time which is left. So I will see you all in a little bit, and take care of yourselves, drink a little bit, stretch a little bit, and then I will be back when the ads are done in about 5 minutes. I am back. I hope you all had a lovely self-care break. Oh, nice. Hi, Hima. Here we have the Portuguese. Thank you for the hydrate. What hill? No, I'm not sick. I'm drained energy-wise though. The sniffling is normal for me because of my sinuses. I have no idea what that is. Yeah, I have it chronically. So yeah. So what is this earthling is talking about? Oh, Bakken. We could go there if you want to. So yeah, if you want to go there, all good. We can do that. But you have to get over here first though, as it will be hard to do it. So yeah. So here we go. You might want to go on a smaller plane because you're actually allowed to fly that. only 3 times. Yeah, I get you. The summer is getting on down below, thought Bilbo, and haymaking is going on and picnics. They will be harvesting and blackberrying before we even begin to go down on the other side at this rate. And the others were thinking equally gloomy thoughts, although when they had said goodbye to Elrond in the high hope of a midsummer morning, they had spoken gaily of the passage of the mountains, and of riding swift across the lands beyond. They had thought of coming to the secret door in the lonely mountain, perhaps that very next last moon of autumn, and perhaps it will be Durin's day, they had said. Only Gandalf had shaken his head and said nothing. Dwarves had not passed that way for many years, but Gandalf had, and he knew how evil and danger had grown and thriven in the wild, since the dragons had driven men from the lands, and the goblins had spread in the secret of the battle of the mines of Moria. Even the good plans of a wise wizard like Gandalf, and of good friends like Elrond, go astray sometimes when you're off on dangerous adventures over the edge of the wild, and Gandalf was a wise enough wizard to know it. He knew that something unexpected might happen, and he hardly dared to hope that they would pass without fearful adventure or over those great tall mountains with lonely peaks and valleys where no king ruled. They did not. All was well until one day they met a thunderstorm. More than a thunderstorm, a thunder battle. You know how terrific a really big thunderstorm can be down in the land and in a river valley, especially at times when two great thunderstorms meet and clash. More terrible still are thunder and lightning in the mountains at night, when storms come up from the east and west and make war. The lightning splinters on the peaks and rocks shiver, and great crashes split the air and go rolling and tumbling into every cave and hollow, and the darkness is filled with overwhelming noise and sudden light. Oh, that my voice didn't like. Bilbo had never seen or imagined anything of the kind. They were high up in a narrow place, with a dreadful fall into a dim valley at one side of them. There they were, sheltering under a hanging rock for the night. Or he lay beneath a blanket and shook from head to toe. When he peeped out in the lightning flashes, he saw that across the valley the stone giants were out and hurling rocks at one another for a game, and catching them and tossing them down into the darkness, where they smashed among the trees far below, or splintered into little bits with a bang. Then came a wind and a rain, and the wind whipped the rain and the hail about in every direction, so that an overhanging rock was no protection at all. Soon they were getting drenched, and their ponies were standing with their heads down and their tails between their legs, and some of them were whining with fright. They could hear the giants guffawing and shouting all over the mountainsides. "This won't do at all," said Thorin. If we don't get blown down or drowned or struck by lightning, we shall be picked up by some giant and kicked sky high for a football." "Well, if you know of anywhere better, take us there," said Gandalf, who was feeling very grumpy and was far from happy about the giants himself. The end of the argument was that they sent Fili and Kili to look for better shelter. They had very sharp eyes, and being the youngest of the dwarves by some 50 years, they usually got these sorts of jobs, when everybody could see that it was absolutely no use sending Bilbo. "There's nothing like looking, if you want to find something," or so Thorin said to the young dwarfs. "You certainly usually find something, if you look, but it is not always quite the something you were after." So it proved on this occasion. Soon Fili and Kili came crawling back, holding on to the rocks in the wind. "We have found a dry cave," they said, "not far round the next corner, and ponies and all could get inside." "Have you thoroughly explored it?" said the wizard, who knew that caves up in the mountains were seldom unoccupied. Yes, they said, though everybody knew they could not have been long about it. They had come back too quick. "It isn't all that big, and it does not go far back. That, of course, is the dangerous part about caves. You don't know how far they go back sometimes." Or where a passage behind may lead, or what is waiting for you inside. But now Feely and Keely's news seemed good enough. So they all got up and prepared to move. The wind was howling and the thunder still growling, and they had a business getting themselves and the ponies along. Still, it was not very far to go, and before long they came to a big rock standing out into the path. If you stepped behind, you found a low arch in the side of the mountain. There was just room to get the ponies through with a squeeze. When they had been unpacked and unsaddled, as they passed under the arch, it was good to hear the wind and the rain outside instead of all about them, and to feel safe from the giants and their rocks. But the wizard was taking no risk. He lit up his wand, as he did that day in Bilbo's dining room that seemed so long ago, if you remember. And by its light they explored the cave from end to end. It seemed quite a fair size, but not too large and mysterious. It had a dry floor and some comfortable nooks. At one end there was room for the ponies, and there they stood, mighty glad of the change, steaming and champing in the nose bags. Owen and Gloin wanted to light a fire at the door to dry their clothes, but Gandalf would not hear of it. So they spread out their wet things on the floor and got dry ones out of the bundles. Then they made their blankets comfortable, got out their pipes and blew smoke rings, which Gandalf turned into different colors and set dancing up by the roof to amuse them. They talked and forgot about the storm, and discussed what each would do with his share of the treasure when they got it, which at the moment did not seem so impossible. And so they dropped off to sleep one by one, and that was the last time that they used the ponies, packages, baggages, tools, and paraphernalia that they had brought with them. It turned out a good thing that night that they had brought little Bilbo with them after all, for somehow he could not go to sleep for a long while, and when he did sleep he had very nasty dreams. He dreamed that a crack in the wall at the back of the cave got bigger and bigger, and opened wider and wider, and he was very afraid, but could not call out or do anything but lie and look. Then he dreamed that the floor of the cave was giving way, and he was slipping, beginning to fall down and down, goodness knows where to. At that he woke up with a horrible start, and found that part of his dream was true. A crack had opened in the back of the cave, and was already a wide passage. He was just in time to see the last of the ponies' tails disappearing into it. Of course he gave a very loud as loud as a yell as a hobbit can give, which is surprising for their size. Out jumped the goblins, big goblins, great ugly looking goblins, lots of goblins. Before you could say rocks and blocks, there were 6 to each dwarf, at least, and 2 even for Bilbo, and they were all grabbed and carried through the cracks. Before you could say tinder and flint, but not Gandalf. Bilbo's yell had done that much good. It had wakened him up wide in a splintered second, and when the goblins came to grab him, there was a terrific flash like lightning in the cave, a smell like gunpowder, and several of them fell dead. The crack closed with a snap, and Bilbo and the dwarves were on the wrong side of it. Where was Gandalf? Of that neither they nor the goblins had any idea, and the goblins did not wait to find out. They seized Bilbo and the dwarves and hurried them along. It was deep, dark, such as only goblins that have taken to living in the heart of the mountains can see through. The passages there were crossed and tangled in all directions, but the goblins knew their way, as well as you do to the nearest post office, and the way went down and down, and it was most horribly stuffy. The goblins were very rough, and pinched unmercifully, and chuckled and laughed in their horrible stony voices. And Bilbo was more unhappy even than when the troll had picked him up by his toes. He wished again and again for his nice bright hobbit hole, not for the last time. Now there came a glimmer of a red light before them. The goblins began to sing and croak, keeping time with the flap of their flat feet on the stone, and shaking their prisoners as well. Clap, snap, the black crack, grip, grab, pinch, snap, and down, down to Goblin Town you go, my lad. Clash, crash, crush, smash, hammer and tongs, knocker and gongs, pound, pound, far on the ground, ho, ho, my lad. Swish, smack, whip, crack, batter and beat, yammer and bleed, work, work, nor dare to shirk, while goblins quaff and goblins laugh, round and round far underground, below, my lad. It sounded truly terrifying. The walls echoed to the clap, snap, and the crush, smash, and to the ugly laughter of the ho ho, my lad. The general meaning of the song was only too plain, for now the goblin took out whips and whipped them with a swish smack, and set them running as fast as they could in front of them, and more than one of the dwarfs were already yammering and bleating like anything when they stumbled into a big cavern. It was lit by a great red flare in the middle, or by torches along the walls, and it was full of goblins. They all laughed and stamped and clapped their hands when the dwarfs, with poor little Bilbo at the back and nearest to the whip, came running in, while the goblin drivers whooped and cracked their whips behind them. The ponies were already being there hurdled in a corner, and there were all the baggages and packages lying broken open and being rummaged by goblins, and smelled by goblins, and fingered by goblins, and quarreled over by goblins. I'm afraid that was the last they ever saw of those excellent little ponies, including a jolly sturdy little white fellow that Elrond had lent to Gandalf, since his horse was not suitable for the mountain paths. For goblins eat horses and ponies and donkeys and other much more dreadful things, and they are always hungry. Just now, however, the prisoners were thinking only of themselves. The goblins chained their hands behind their backs and linked them all together in a line, and dragged them to the far end of the cavern, with little Bilbo tugging at the end of the row. There in the shadows, on a large flat stone, sat a tremendous goblin with a huge head, and armed goblins were standing round him, carrying axes and the bent swords that they use. Now goblins are cruel, wicked, and bad-hearted. They make no beautiful things, but they make many clever ones. They can tunnel a mine as well as any, but the most skilled dwarfs. When they take the trouble, though they are usually untidy and dirty, hammers, axes, swords, daggers, pickaxes, thongs, and also instruments of torture, they make very well, or get other people to make their sign, prisoners and slaves that have to work till they die for want of air and light. It is not unlikely that they invented some of the machines that have since troubled the world, especially ingenious devices for killing large numbers of people at once, for wheels and engines and explosions always delight them. And also not working with their own hands more than they could help. But in those days and those wild parts, they had not advanced as it is called so far. They did not hate dwarves especially, no more than they hated everybody and everything, and particularly the orderly and prosperous. In some parts, wicked dwarves had even made alliances with them, but they had a special grudge against Thorin's people, because of the war which you have heard mentioned, but which does not come into this tale. And anyway, goblins don't care who they catch, as long as it is done smart and secret, and the prisoners are not able to defend themselves. Who are these miserable persons? Said the great goblin. Dwarves and this, said one of the drivers, pulling at Bilbo's chain, so that he fell forward onto his knees. We found them sheltering in our front porch. What do you mean by it? Said the great goblin, turning to Thorin. Up to no good, I'll warrant. Spying on the private business of my people, I guess. Thieves, I shouldn't be surprised to learn. Murderers and friends of elves, not unlikely. Come, what have you got to say? Thorin, the dwarf at your service, he replied. It was merely a polite nothing. Of the things which you suspect and imagine, we had no idea at all. We sheltered from a storm in what seemed a convenient cave, and unused. Nothing was further from our thoughts than inconveniencing goblins in any way whatever. That was true enough, said the great goblin. So you say. May I ask what you were doing up in the mountains at all, and where you were coming from, and where you were going to? In fact, I should like to know all about you. Not that it will do you much good, Thorin Oakenshield. I know too much about your folk already, but let's have the truth, or I will prepare something particularly uncomfortable for you. We were on a journey to visit our relatives, our nephews and nieces, and first, second, and third cousins, and the other descendants of our grandfathers, who live on the east side of these truly hospitable mountains, said Thorin, not quite knowing what to say all at once in a moment, when obviously the exact truth would not do at all. He is a liar, or truly tremendous one, said one of the drivers. Several of our people were struck by lightning in the cave when we invited these creatures to come below, and they are dead as stone. Also, he has not explained this. He held out the sword which Thorin had worn, the sword which came from the troll's lair. The great goblin gave a truly awful howl of rage when he looked at it, and his soldiers gnashed their teeth, clasped their shields, and stamped. They knew the sword at once. It had killed hundreds of goblins in its time, when the fair elves of Gondolin hunted them in the hills, or did battle before the walls. They had called it Orcrist, Goblin Cleaver, but the goblins called it simply Biter. They hated it and hated worse anyone that carried it. Murderers and elf friends, said the great goblin shouted. Slash them, beat them, bite them, gnash them, take them away to the dark holes full of snakes, and never let them see the light again. He was in such a rage that he jumped off his seat and himself rushed at Thorin with his mouth open. Just at that moment, all the light in the cavern went out, and a great fire went off poof into a tower of blue glowing smoke right up to the roof that scattered piercing white sparks all among the goblins. The yells and yammering, croaking, gibbering and jabbering, howls, growls and curses, shrieking and shrieking that followed were beyond description. Several hundred wildcats and wolves being roasted slowly alive together would not have compared with it. The sparks were burning holes in the goblins, and the smoke that now fell from the roof made the air too thick for even their eyes to look through. Soon they were falling over one another and rolling in heaps on the floor, biting and kicking and fighting as they had all gone mad. Suddenly a sword flashed in its own light. Bilbo saw it go right through the great goblin. As he stood dumbfounded in the middle of his rage, he fell dead, and the goblin soldiers fled before the sword shrieking into the darkness. The sword went back to its sheath. "Follow me quick," said a voice fierce and quiet, and before Bilbo understood what had happened, he was trotting along again, as fast as he could trot. At the end of the line, down more dark passages, with the yells of the goblin hall growing fainter behind him. A pale light was leading them on. "Quicker, quicker," said the voice. "The torches will soon be relit." "Half a minute," said Dory, who was at the back next to Bilbo, "and a decent fellow." He made the Hobbit scramble on his shoulders as best he could with his tight hands. And then off they all went at a run, with a clink of chains and many a stumble, since they had no hands to steady themselves. Not for a long while did they stop, and by that time they must have been all right down in the very mountain's heart. Then Gandalf lit up his wand. Of course it was Gandalf. But just then they were too busy to ask how he got there. He took out his sword again, and again it flashed in the dark by itself. It burned with a rage that made it gleam if goblins were about. Now it was bright as blue flame for delight in the killing of the great lord of the cave. It made no trouble whatever of cutting through the goblin chains and setting all of the prisoners free as quickly as possible. This sword's name was Glamdring, the foe hammer, if you remember. The goblins just called it Beater, and hated it worse than Biter if possible. Orcris too had been saved, for Gandalf had brought it along as well, snatching it from one of the terrified guards. Gandalf, though of most things, and though he could not do everything, he could do a great deal for friends in a tight corner. Thank you. Yeah, something didn't work. Yeah, I will probably fix it until next time. It's just an overlay, a source I need to move up into the other ones. So yeah. As I said, I just set it up today. So to be honest, there's a lot lacking. So yeah. So where were we? Okay, there. Are we all here, said he, handing his sword back to Thorin with a bow. Let me see. One, that's Thorin. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Where are Philly and Killy? Here they are. 12, 13, and here's Mr. Backens. 14. Well, it might be worse, and then again, it might be a good deal better. No ponies and no food, and no knowing quite where we are, and hordes of angry goblins just behind. On we go. On they went. Gandalf was quite right. They began to hear goblin noises and horrible cries far behind in the passages they had come through. That sent them on faster than ever, and as poor Bilbo could not possibly go half as fast, for dwarves can roll along at a tremendous pace, I can tell you, when they have to, they took it in turn to carry him on their backs. Still, goblins go faster than dwarves, and these goblins knew the way better. They had made the path themselves, and very madly angry, so that do what they could, the dwarves heard the cries, and howls getting closer and closer. Soon they could hear even the flap of goblin feet, many feet which seemed only just round the last corner. The blink of red torches could be seen behind them in the tunnels they were following, and they were getting deadly tired. Why, oh why did I ever leave my hobbit hole, said poor Mr. Backens, bumping up and down on Bumper's back. Why, oh why did I ever bring a wretched little hobbit on a treasure hunt, said poor Bumper, who was fat and staggered along with the sweat dripping down his nose into his heat and terror. At this point Gandalf fell behind, and Thorin with him. They turned a sharp corner. About turn, he shouted. Draw your sword, Thorin. There was nothing else to be done, and the goblins did not like it. They came scurrying round the corner in full cry, and found Goblin Cleaver and Foehammer shining cold and bright right in their astonished eyes. The ones in front dropped their torches and gave one yell before they were killed. The ones behind yelled still more, and leaped back, knocking over those that were running after them. Bite her and beat her, they shrieked, and soon they were all in confusion, and most of them were hustling back the way they had come. It was quite a long while before any of them dared to turn that corner. By that time, the dwarves had gone on again, a long way into the dark tunnels of the goblin realm. When the goblins discovered that, they put out the torches and they slipped off on soft shoes, and they chose out their very quickest runners with the sharpest ears and eyes. These ran forward as swift as weasels in the dark, and with hardly any more noise than bats. That is why neither Bilbo nor the dwarves, nor even Gandalf heard them coming, nor did they see them, but they were seen by the goblins that ran silently up behind, for Gandalf was letting his wand give out a faint light to help the dwarves as they went along. Quiet, suddenly Dory, now at the back again, carrying Bilbo, was grabbed from behind in the dark. He shouted and fell, and the hobbit rolled off his shoulders into the blackness, bumped his head on a hard rock, and remembered nothing more. Okay. So that was everything for today. So I will find someone to raid. Of course, as usual, if you guys have anyone you want to suggest, please just do. Yeah, no. Okay. So here. And who is Bink? Please send the full name. I have no idea who Bink is. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, maybe I should use the search function on Twitch instead. Okay, let's see. Oh, nice. Okay. We can go there and say hi. Here. And here you can get your rate message, and then we will go soon. So I will see you all next Sunday, and I hope you all had fun and enjoyed being here. And if you do have YouTube, I would very much appreciate you subscribing over there as well. So I will see you all next Sunday, same time, same thing we're doing. And remember to take care of yourself.